Hey everyone, this is Jo Goddard, and I've been teaching a lot about sex and money for about the last 6 years or so. And one of the core parts of why I began teaching about sex and money together is that what I've seen in the people that I work with, and certainly what I have seen in my own life, is that people run the same patterns around sex that they run around money. And when I say this to people, oftentimes there's a lot of confusion and a lack of clarity around what a pattern about money might look like, or what a pattern around sex might look like, and how those patterns are actually mirroring one another. So I don't think that you're going to show up super differently in your sexuality than you are around money and finances and wealth and abundance and all of those things, right? Sexuality is creative energy. It is that creative juice, and we use that energy to create everything that we're here to create in our lives, including money and abundance and love and community and art and music and projects and businesses and all of the things that we are here to create. And so when you're running a certain current around your sexuality, you're going to run that current in the things that you're creating. And so looking more closely at what those patterns might look like is really, really important if we want to break through them. So I think I want to talk to you about several of these patterns today. I've got about 7 or 8 of them that I want to take a few minutes to talk to you about, because there is a lot that we can do with that initial awareness. And then if you want to go a little bit deeper into healing those patterns and really shifting those patterns, I will tell you at the end how you might do that with an upcoming program that I'm doing. So the first pattern is that often people will feel a deep sense of lack, a deep sense of being deprived. I hear stories from people all the time about how they're feeling deprived in their sexual lives, how they're in a long-term relationship and they're not getting their needs met, and many of them never have, and they don't really believe that it can happen. So if you're in a belief like that around your sexuality and your pleasure and having your desires met, then that's going to be showing up in some way in your financial life. How are you feeling deprived? Are you feeling like you're not able to bring in the money that you want to bring in, or that you never quite have enough? You never quite have the things that you really want and desire. Or are there internal places in you where you keep yourself in a place of deprivation to mirror that deprivation that might be happening sexually for you? So you might be making a good salary or bringing in a good amount of money and feeling okay about that, and yet you don't allow yourself to take time off. You don't, and do fun things. You don't give yourself the spa day. You don't treat yourself to things or buy yourself things. And so you're still operating in this place of deprivation, even though maybe the actual financial sustenance is there. But it's more about how you're choosing to use it. Right? So I think that pattern of lack and deprivation is the biggest one. I see it in people all the time. Many of us live in a consistent place of lack, and we experience that over many years, and it can be very frustrating and then create a lot of anger and resentment. And then as you create anger and resentment around your sexuality and your desire and your pleasure in your body, or around having money and having the sustenance and the prosperity that you really want to have in your life, then that frustration and that resentment then starts to multiply the deprivation, and it feels like a place where you can't get out of. So that's, I think, definitely the number one pattern. There are other patterns, though. And so sometimes people might not be in that sense of deprivation or feeling lack all the time, but there's a way in which they engage in extreme behaviors around both sexuality and money. So if you are a compulsive spender, right? So you're spending money compulsively, impulsively on things that aren't actually a good use of your money, and spending it away, that might be an extreme behavior around money. people also engage in extreme behaviors around sex and relationships, jumping into relationships really impulsively, moving in together really quickly, or having sexual relations that maybe aren't in their best interests, and are a way of engaging in an extreme behavior because it's meeting some other need in you. And there's a lot of deep-seated needs that might be meeting. And so that is one of the things that in that case would be really important to look at. Like, what is underneath that behavior, that compulsive or impulsive behavior that's happening? So the overspending, the sexual acting out, the unsafe or reckless behavior that might be happening, or just being non-discerning about the ways in which you spend money and the ways in which you experience your sexuality, right? And the ways in which you choose to have the fun in your sexuality that you want to have. Another really big and common pattern is the feeling of unworthiness. And this can often go along with that pattern of lack and deprivation. So this feeling of unworthiness is, it's a core wound. It is a core wound for many people that we feel like, I'm not worthy enough, I'm not good enough, I'm not smart enough or sexy enough or rich enough or whatever, beautiful enough, desirable enough, attractive enough, like whatever the thing is. I'm not successful enough. So it's that living in that not enoughness, which relates to that core wound of not feeling worthy to have the money that you deserve or to have the sexual relationship and the sexual expression and the pleasure that you deserve. So I think, again, a very, very common one. And a lot of times in that unworthiness, there's a way in which people aren't able to actually handle having either one. And so then they'll let it go in ways that aren't great for us. Like they don't end up, having us be in that place of having the things that we want to have. A good example of this would be someone who wins the lottery. There's all these statistics of people who win the lottery and they make all this money, but then they're not able to hang on to it. They literally spend it all away. It's gone within a few years. And they're right back where they were before at the set point that they were at before. And so the set point is a whole other conversation. But there's this piece around if there's still that internal unworthiness, if there's still that internal fear that I'm not good enough, I'm a fraud, I shouldn't be walking around with all of this new cash in my pocket because I won the lottery, then you are going to find a way to let it go. And you're going to do that with good relationships that show up too. I mean, we've all probably have people in our lives who we watch get into a relationship with an amazing person and we're like, keep them, they're amazing, don't blow it, and then they do because there is this sense of, I don't really deserve this person. And that might be something that you've experienced in your life as well. So unworthiness is another really big one. Another big pattern around sex and money is deception and being secretive. We often learn this in our families of origin. We learn it from the patterns of our parents. It starts with the idea that we shouldn't talk about sex and we shouldn't talk about money. Don't brag about how much money you have. Don't share how much money you make. We don't talk about sex. That's a taboo topic. These are both pretty taboo topics for many, many people. And they are the two topics that more relationships break up over than anything else. So that deceptiveness and being secretiveness can come from that background of taboo, and then it can grow into other patterns in our adult lives that we don't want, that aren't good for us. So, for instance, getting into a marriage without sharing your true financial situation with your partner, and then suddenly your partner finds out you're in all this debt or you have these other issues around money that now have implications for them in some way. That would be, I think, a big example of how people can be deceptive in relationships around money. And then certainly in all kinds of ways we can be deceptive around money, stealing it, embezzling it, taking it from people in ways that just are not okay, even in the little ways. And I think we have to be honest with ourselves about the ways in which we do that. And then there's the deception around sexuality. And a lot of people want to be able to explore their sexuality. Um, they want to have that thrill of new relationship, or maybe they get into a situation in their current relationship where they're unhappy. So they start seeking satisfaction and sexual expression elsewhere. And so when that happens, a lot of times that leads to affairs or what people call cheating, which is usually indicative that there's some other bigger situation at hand. And for some people, that pattern of deception is very long-standing. They learned it from a parent that might have done that, or they watched the adults in their lives engage in some kind of real deception around sexuality where we really could not be honest. It can show up in the ways in which we disclose or don't disclose our histories with sexually transmitted infections and things like that, and then we put other people at risk. So lots of ways that we can have these habits around hiding things about sexuality and about money, which then leads to us feeling a sense of shame, and doesn't allow us to actually open up to the abundance and the expansion that this energy is really about. There's really no energy that is more expansive than sexual energy, right? It is the creative life force from which we create more life. So there's nothing in the universe that's more creative and expansive than that. Whether you decide to have children or not, that is the energy of it, right? And so you can use that and you can funnel that towards other parts of your lives, including, of course, your financial life. So then there's the sense of hopelessness, that we're never going to be able to change our situation around money, that our sexual life is never going to get better, that you're always going to feel the way that you feel, that you're going to feel broken about it, that you're going to feel broke about money, right? So that sense of hopelessness, I think that's another big pattern for people, and that often can come from some of these other patterns. And then there's the sense of being the victim around sex and money and blaming other people for the things that happen to you around your sexuality and around money, right? This is a big one, and it is a very challenging one for people to look at, because sometimes we have really been victimized around our sexuality. That's very real for many of us. This is not to say that that victimization is not real. What this current is about is then how are we continuing to identify with and align ourselves with that victim energy around our sexuality and around our money. Because if you continue to align yourself and see yourself in that victim place, and that comes through blaming other people, through a lot of the habits that we create around whatever your experience has been, that will keep you in that place of victimhood. And you cannot be in a place of empowerment if you are in a current place of victimhood. It simply cannot happen. They are two sides of the same coin. You're going to have the coin flipped one way or the other. So they're very close together, and the line sometimes can be very thin. And it's an important place to be able to look at with honesty. Sometimes we're not ready to look at that one. But until you can really face that part of yourself that feels victimized around money, that feels victimized around sexuality, you're not going to be able to make the change. I know I went through this myself, coming up as a sexuality educator, being taught you can't make money as a sexuality educator. I mean, I was taught that by my mentors. I was taught that by many people in my life. And so I started to build a lot of resentment about that, and really felt very victimized by my situation, until I was willing to face that and really say, wait a minute, this can look different. I can create something different, even if the mentors in my life have not been able to do that. And so that's what happened for me. And really facing that part of myself that was aligning myself as victim was the most life-changing thing that I've ever done. It allowed me to change so many parts of my life, not just the money I was bringing in, but many of the ways in which I was showing up in the world. And then there's the pattern of poor decision making, which can go along with some of these others as well. It is a habit that many people have around sex and money. They consistently make decisions that are not based on the right things. And so, again, that requires some looking at, like, let's peel that back and figure out, well, why am I making these decisions? What is really at stake, and what are the things that I really want to move towards, and how can I then start to make the decisions that will allow me to do that, so that I can have the relationship life that I want to have, and the deep intimacy that I want to have, and the sexy pleasure and play that I want to have, as well as the money and prosperity and abundance and wealth that I want to have. And then the final one I want to mention today is the pattern of comparison and aligning ourselves with deficits. So if you are in a place of comparing how much you make to other people, if you're in a place of comparing your own body, your own desires, your own fantasies, your own sex life with other people, which, by the way, we're all taught to do, right? We are all taught to do this. Every magazine, certainly every women's magazine, and I think a lot of the men's magazines too that are on the stands, all you have to do is look at the covers, and it can pull on this piece, right? It can tug at us around, like, see, you're not getting it right. See, this is what's normal, and you're probably not normal. We need to show you how broken you are, so then you got to fix it. So if you are in that place of comparison, and certainly if you're in that place, I think more personally in your life, with people who are in your life, with other women who are successful, other men who are successful, with your partner. Sometimes we're in that comparison and that competition with our own partner. If you are in that place, then there's a way in which you are actually aligning yourself with a deficit, because you're looking for the deficit. Where's the deficit? Who has less? And as long as you're doing that, I can tell you where the deficit is going to lie, right? The deficit is going to be right here. And so this pattern around comparison, aligning with deficits, and competition really has to shift. And I do a lot of work around women's sexual empowerment, and there is never a group that I work with where we don't talk about the ways in which women compare and compete. And I don't do so much men's work. I think that is also work that men need to be doing. Women are definitely socialized to be competitive, that there's only enough for, there's not enough to go around. There's only like one woman in the room that can be the sexiest or the most beautiful or the most wanted or, the most successful, whatever the thing is. So we have to really begin to look at this piece, and we have to look at it really seriously, and where it takes hold in us, because we are not in our power when we're in that place. And so both sex and money are very much about an invitation to be in your full power. I think that really is the opportunity that they both give us in our lives, on top of experiencing much more fun and pleasure and travel and people and, good food, or, whatever the things are that bring you pleasure and joy in your life, that you want to experience through the money that you have and through your sexuality. And so we do come into a real sense of our own power when we break through these patterns, and when we look honestly at how they're showing up in both of these areas. There is a mirror effect with sex and money. They are very much linked in our modern world. So I wanted to share that with you today. I do teach a course called Going All the Way with Sex and Money. I will put details down below if you're interested in diving much more deeply into this and breaking through around the things that have held you back. I would love to work with you and to have you in my course. So just check all the information below, and I look forward to helping you get underneath the hood and really break through these things, which are sort of the first doorway. And then as you break through those patterns and you're able to bring in more skill around having the things, and also keeping and nurturing the things that you want to have, that's when your life really transforms, and you'll look back on it and wonder why you didn't do that sooner. So These are major, major breakthroughs in our lives. Experiencing full sexual empowerment and experiencing financial empowerment are truly two of the most transformative things we can ever do for ourselves. So I hope that this video has been helpful to you. I'd love to hear some comments below on the patterns that you have seen show up for you. If you wouldn't mind leaving a comment, please do. And you can always check out more of my work at amyjogoddard.com. And I will see you in my next video. Have a great day.